Then, to her surprise, Prince Afam broke the silence. "I've been thinking about you a lot," he began, his voice calm and warm. "I've never met anyone like you. You've lived such a different life than I have, and I can't help but wonder, why are you so kind to everyone, even after everything you've been through?" His words were soft but full of curiosity, as if he genuinely wanted to understand her. Adaeze looked up at him, her heart racing again. How could someone like him, someone so far removed from her world, be interested in her life? What did he see in her? "I've had to survive," Adaeze said softly, her voice barely audible. "I don't have the luxury of holding on to hate. People might have treated me badly, but I can't change the past. I just have to keep moving forward." Prince Afam smiled, a hint of admiration in his eyes. He then proceeded to tell Adaeze stories of his life, stories of his time in the palace, the things he had seen, and the lessons he had learned. He spoke of the challenges he faced as the prince, and how difficult it was to live up to the expectations placed upon him. As the hours passed, Adaeze listened, captivated by the stories he told. For the first time in a long time, she found herself laughing. She couldn't remember the last time she had laughed so freely. It felt like a weight was being lifted off her chest with each story he shared. His voice, his warmth, his presence, everything about him made her feel safe. She forgot, for a brief moment, the hardships she had faced in the past. She just enjoyed the conversation, the connection that was forming between them. When the conversation ended, and the sun had set, Prince Afam stood to leave. Adaeze didn't want him to go, but she didn't know how to ask him to stay. She had never expected him to come to her home, and now, as he turned to leave, a part of her felt empty. But before he left, Prince Afam turned back to her with a gentle smile. "Thank you for letting me into your home, Adaeze," he said. "I hope to visit again." Adaeze watched him leave, her heart full. She couldn't believe what had just happened. The prince, the very prince she had always heard about, the one every girl in the village dreamed of, had come to see her, had spoken with her, and had treated her with kindness. It felt like a dream, one she never wanted to end. That night, as Adaeze lay in bed, she replayed everything in her mind. The warmth of his presence, the sound of his voice, the way he made her feel so special. She couldn't sleep, her thoughts racing. She wanted more of this, more of him, more of the happiness she had just discovered. But something also weighed on her heart. There was still one thing she hadn't told him. The truth about her past. The truth about her parents. Would he still look at her the same way if he knew the things she had been through? Would he still want to be around her? Adaeze couldn't help but wonder. Meanwhile, across the village, Prince Afam lay awake in his chamber, his mind consumed with thoughts of Adaeze. He couldn't shake the image of her face, the way she smiled, the way she had laughed. There was something so captivating about her. She was different from all the other women he had met. She had been through so much, and yet, she didn't let bitterness rule her life. Prince Afam walked around his room, unable to find peace. He was restless, longing to understand more about her story. He wanted to know everything, to learn about the woman who had captured his heart. In the days that followed, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her smile. It was clear to him now, something special was growing between them. But what about Adaeze? Did she feel the same? Would she accept him if she knew who he really was? Would she open her heart to him despite their different worlds? As the days passed, Prince Afam found himself visiting Adaeze more and more. He looked forward to their conversations, their shared moments, the way they made each other laugh. And each day, his feelings for her deepened. But for Adaeze, it wasn't as simple. Each day, she grew closer to the prince, but each night, her thoughts became heavier. She had never imagined that someone like him would care for someone like her. He had never asked about her past, about her struggles. It was as if he saw her only for who she was now. But Adaeze couldn't help the doubts that crept into her mind. What if he found out about her history? Would he still love her? Would he still want to be with her if he knew what she had been through? As this thought swirled in her mind, Adaeze lay in her bed, unable to sleep, unsure of what to do. It was a beautiful afternoon when Prince Afam and Adaeze sat near the riverbank together. The sun was setting slowly, casting a soft golden light over the village. The air was warm, and the sound of the flowing river filled the space around them. They sat side by side in a peaceful silence, enjoying the calm of the moment. For the first time in her life, Adaeze felt like she could breathe. She was with someone who saw her for who she truly was, not as the cursed girl everyone else believed her to be. Prince Afam, who had been quiet for a while, suddenly broke the silence. His voice was calm, yet there was a seriousness to it that made Adaeze look up at him. "Tell me about yourself, Adaeze," he said, his eyes fixed on her. "Why does everyone hate you? Why do they despise you? Why are you always rejected? What happened to your parents? How did they die? Why do you always look so dirty, and why do you let people treat you like trash even when you've done nothing wrong?" Adaeze's heart skipped a beat. She had known this day would come, but she didn't expect it to feel so hard. She had kept her story hidden for so long, buried deep in her heart where no one could reach it. Now, sitting next to the prince, Adaeze knew that she couldn't keep it in any longer. The tears started to well up in her eyes. She couldn't stop them. She looked down at her hands, trembling. It felt like a flood of memories was crashing over her all at once, the loss of her parents, the hurtful words from the villagers, the mocking laughter of the children. It was too much to bear. Prince Afam reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You don't have to say anything if you don't want to," he said softly. "But if you're ready, I'm here to listen." Adaeze wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Her voice came out in a shaky whisper as she began to speak. "I was just a little girl when my father died," she started. "He fell while climbing a palm tree. I remember the day so clearly. The men came to tell us, but my mother didn't believe it. She kept asking for him, calling his name, and that's when I saw her spirit break. After that, she fell sick and soon passed away, too. I was left all alone. People started calling me cursed. They said I had killed my parents, that my bad luck had ruined their lives. I didn't ask for any of this, but it didn't matter. They all turned their backs on me." As she spoke, the words came harder, like they were stuck in her throat. She wanted to keep going, to share everything, but some things were too painful to say out loud. Still, she kept going. "I worked in the farms just to survive. Every day, I went from one farm to another, asking for work. But people wouldn't pay me properly. Sometimes they wouldn't pay me at all. I didn't have the money to buy nice clothes, or even enough food to eat. The other children, they laughed at me. They called me names, the rubberhead, the cursed girl. They said that I was nothing. Tears fell freely now, and Adaeze couldn't stop them. She looked down at her feet, trying to hide her face from the prince. But he gently lifted her chin with his hand, making her look into his eyes. His expression was soft, full of compassion. "Your pain is over now," he whispered. "No one will hurt you again. I promise." Prince Afam pulled Adaeze into a warm hug, holding her tightly. She could feel his heart beating against hers, and for the first time in so long, she felt safe. She had never felt this kind of comfort before. It was like the weight of all her suffering was finally being lifted. "You don't have to suffer anymore, Adaeze," Prince Afam said, his voice thick with emotion. "I will make sure that everyone who has hurt you will pay for it. I will make them understand what they've done to you. They will never look down on you again." Adaeze let out a deep sigh, closing her eyes and resting her head on his chest. She had always dreamed of a life without pain, but it had always seemed impossible. Now, with Prince Afam beside her, it didn't feel impossible anymore. It felt real. Days passed, and the tension in the village grew. The news of Prince Afam's decision to marry Adaeze spread like wildfire. The villagers couldn't believe it. It was unthinkable. They had seen Adaeze as nothing but a poor, cursed girl. How could she possibly be the future queen? The elders of the village were in an uproar. They called an urgent meeting in the palace. Prince Afam stood before them, his face calm but determined. He had made up his mind. "My father, the king, has been ill for many years now," Prince Afam began, his voice steady. "He has been asking me to find a wife, but I have never been interested in anyone. However, after much thought, I have decided to listen to him. I want to marry the woman I love, Adaeze." The room went silent. The elders looked at each other, unsure of what to say. Finally, an old man spoke up, his voice filled with anger. "That cursed child of late Motsinkyum can never be our queen," the man shouted. Another elder added, "Do you want to bring a curse upon our land?" An uproar followed, and the room was filled with shouting and confusion. Prince Afam held up his hand to silence them. "You will not speak ill of her anymore," he said firmly. "Adaeze is the woman I choose, and no one will change that." The meeting quickly broke up, and word spread through the village like wildfire. The village was in chaos. The elders were upset, the young people were angry, and the older women were furious. The gossip and whispers could be heard everywhere. Among the loudest voices were Anita and her friends. They couldn't accept the reality that Prince Afam would marry Adaeze. Anita had always seen herself as the one destined to marry the prince, but now that dream was slipping away. Anita and her friends spent days trying to convince Adaeze to change her mind, threatening her with everything they could think of. They told her that if she didn't step away, the entire village would turn against her. But Adaeze didn't listen. Her love for Prince Afam was stronger than their threats. As the days passed, the village became more divided. Some people supported Prince Afam's decision, but many others were against it. The tension was palpable, and everyone waited to see what the king would do. The king, though weak from illness, summoned all the villagers to the palace for a final decision. When everyone had gathered, the king stood up, his voice echoing through the room. "I will answer all your questions today," the king said. "And today, we shall pick a bride for my son." The villagers held their breath, waiting for the king to speak again. The moment had come. Then, the king asked Adaeze to come forward. As Adaeze walked toward the throne, the villagers gasped. She had changed. Gone was the girl they had once mocked. Adaeze stood before them, transformed. Her hair, still made from rubber thread, was styled beautifully. Her clothes were elegant, and her beauty shone like never before. She was no longer the dirty, poor girl they had once known. The king spoke again. If anyone here has any evidence that this young girl is cursed, or if anyone can prove that she killed her parents, let them speak now. For hours, there was silence. No one spoke. The accusations that had been made against Adaeze were empty. There was no evidence, only lies and gossip. The king continued, "We have all misjudged her. We have hurt her in ways that I, as the king, was not even aware of. But today, I take full responsibility for what we have done. I will make it right." Adaeze stood silently, her heart heavy with emotion. She had suffered so much, but now, in front of everyone, her pain was being acknowledged. The king called Adaeze forward and asked her to make her request. Adaeze took a deep breath, her voice calm but strong. "I only ask for two things. First, that I may marry the man I love, Prince Afam." The villagers nodded. This was expected. "The second request," Adaeze continued, her voice breaking slightly, "is for Auntie Alice to live with me in the palace. She has been my family since I lost mine, and I want her to be with me always." The village was stunned. Some were moved by her kindness, while others were still in disbelief. But in the end, Adaeze's requests were granted. The prince and Adaeze were married in a grand ceremony, and Auntie Alice moved into the palace with them. Weeks later, as Prince Afam and Adaeze stood hand in hand, they looked at each other with love and happiness. The village that had once rejected her now watched in awe as Adaeze, the girl they had mocked, became their queen. And for the first time in her life, Adaeze felt truly loved. When Adaeze officially became the queen of the village, everyone watched with wide eyes. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The girl who had been the subject of mockery and scorn for so long, the girl they had called the cursed and the rubber-head girl, was now standing tall as their queen. The villagers, especially those who had once laughed at her, felt uneasy. They worried about what might come next. Some of the older villagers, particularly those who had treated her with the most cruelty, feared that Adaeze might now use her new power to punish them for the way they had treated her. They expected her to take revenge, to make life difficult for them, perhaps even to treat them as slaves for the things they had said and done to her. These fears were especially strong in Anita and her friends, who had been the loudest in mocking Adaeze. They imagined that Adaeze would make them bow down to her every day, or force them to work for her without rest. But to their surprise, Adaeze did none of these things. When she became queen, she had no desire to hold on to past hurts. She had suffered long enough and had no intention of letting anger or revenge rule her life. Adaeze understood that the past was something she could not change, no matter how much it had hurt her. She chose to focus on the future. Her heart was set on making the kingdom a better place for everyone, regardless of their past mistakes. The villagers, unsure of how to react, began to notice how Adaeze carried herself. Instead of walking around with a sense of bitterness, she radiated kindness and grace. She never acted superior or vengeful. She greeted everyone with a smile and treated them with respect. The poor, the rich, the elders, and the young, no one was treated differently. Adaeze, now queen, had a new vision. She wanted to build a future where people supported each other, where no one would suffer as she had, and where kindness and understanding replaced judgment. As the days went by, Adaeze's rule began to change the village. Her kindness was infectious. The people who had once mocked her now felt ashamed of their actions. They started to realize how wrong they had been, but instead of being punished, they were shown forgiveness and compassion. It was a new beginning for the village. Adaeze made sure everyone, no matter their background, had the chance to live with dignity. She didn't want to see anyone suffering the way she had, and she worked hard to improve the lives of the villagers. However, there were still a few who could not shake the old ways of thinking. Anita and her friends, who had once been the ringleaders in the cruel jokes and mockery, struggled the most with Adaeze's new position. They couldn't understand how she could forgive them so easily, especially after everything they had done. They expected her to be angry, to hold a grudge. But instead, Adaeze's attitude toward them was calm and forgiving. One day, Adaeze called Anita and her friends into the palace. They entered nervously, unsure of what was going to happen. They thought that maybe, just maybe, Adaeze would finally get her revenge. But Adaeze surprised them all. "I want you to be my personal attendants," she said gently, without any malice in her voice. "You will serve me, but not in a way you might think. I want you to help me build something better for this village. I want you to work alongside me, to learn from me, and to help create a kingdom where no one is left behind." Anita and her friends were taken aback. They had expected to be punished, perhaps even cast out of the village. But instead, Adaeze offered them a chance to be part of her vision for the future. Adaeze wasn't holding on to the past, and she didn't want to make them suffer. She believed in second chances, and she wanted to show them that the future could be brighter if they worked together. For the first time in their lives, Anita and her friends felt the weight of their past actions. They had expected Adaeze to treat them with disdain, but she did the opposite. She treated them with kindness and respect, giving them the opportunity to change. They realized that Adaeze had the strength to forgive and to move forward, and they had a choice. They could either continue in their old ways or follow Adaeze's example and help create a better future for everyone. Despite their initial shock, Anita and her friends agreed to serve Adaeze. They became her personal attendants, helping her with her duties as queen. They didn't just serve her as they had feared, but they also learned from her. They saw how Adaeze cared for everyone in the kingdom, how she worked tirelessly to improve their lives, and how she always put others first. Over time, Anita and her friends started to change. They began to understand that true power didn't come from making others suffer, but from lifting them up and helping them grow. As for Adaeze, she never looked back at the past. She had a new life now, and she was determined to make it as beautiful as possible. Her relationship with Prince Afam grew stronger each day, and together, they worked to make their kingdom a place where everyone could thrive. Adaeze no longer saw herself as the poor, cursed girl. She saw herself as a leader, a queen who had the power to create change. In time, the villagers came to see Adaeze not just as the queen, but as a symbol of hope and resilience. They realized that the girl they had once rejected was now their queen, and she had chosen to build a future based on love, kindness, and unity. Adaeze had forgiven them, and in doing so, she had shown them the true meaning of strength. Anita and her friends, now her attendants, had learned the greatest lesson of all: true greatness lies in how you treat others, and how you rise above hatred and cruelty to make the world a better place. And so, Adaeze's reign began with a new spirit in the village, a spirit of forgiveness, growth, and a future full of promise. Thank you for watching this story. Kindly share your thoughts in the comment section, give this story a thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story. Thank you, and remain blessed.